As a Texas real estate broker and a national instructor, I get a question asked of me a lot on what is basically the difference between a buyer's agent and a listing agent or a seller's agent. Although it may seem like that it's just a difference in title, there are some distinct functions that they perform in an umbrella of legal framework that makes a difference between how they do their job, who they're looking out for, and what it is they're trying to achieve. Let's begin with thinking about as a buyer's agent. So a buyer's agent is positioned to be an ally of the home buyer. They are working with a buyer to navigate the entire process of buying a home. And it starts, of course, with combing through the market and unearthing properties that would fit a buyer's preferences and needs. And it is with their armed arsenal of market knowledge that they really can provide some great insights to some of the trends and what's going on in the neighborhood dynamics, as well as empowering the buyers to make some informed decisions. Negotiations is their forte on the aspect of working with a buyer and looking at the intricacies and making sure that they are bargaining to try and find a buyer a secure and fair deal. Now, with a buyer and representing them, as an agent, our role extends far more than just the transactional facilitation. It really is to be a guide and a guardian and shepherding those buyers to make a better decision in what might seem like from a third party or someone looking in as a convoluted process. Helping write a contract and making sure that you are looking at every aspect of that contract and really putting your buyer in the best position to not only get the best deal, but afford them the most outs in the process. Above all, a buyer's agent is really supposed to stand as an unwavering advocate for that buyer, helping them find the best property, the best deal, and overseeing every aspect of the transaction. So it is that important for a buyer to have a buyer's agent to remain as a safeguard of sorts throughout the whole process to make sure that the buyer is well represented and that they are getting the best deal. It is through that commitment that the buyer's agent has to the buyer that is enabling them to be well represented and make sure that every interest of the buyers is really overseen and protected. Depending on the forms that you use in the contract here in Texas, there are about 50 outs through the contract and all the forms that could possibly be used that a buyer's agent is really going to make sure that they are aware of, that they can prevent a buyer from having to move forward when they need to get out of a transaction, and really put the buyer in the best negotiating position. It is with a buyer's representation agreement that a buyer is represented by a buyer's agent. And let me back up for a second and tell you something. So prior to 1992, everybody in real estate nationwide worked for the seller. Either you were the seller's agent or you were a sub-agent of the seller. That meant that the buyers had no representation out there whatsoever, and it caused some issues. And in 1992, buyer's representation came around. Now, buyer's agency in Texas happens pretty much right now in three different ways. One is called implied agency, where the agent, through their actions or words, are acting as if they are the agent for the buyer, therefore implied agency. Then we have in Texas two types of agency agreements that are express agreements. You can have an oral agreement or you can have a written agreement. Now, most agents and most brokerages require you to have a written buyer's representation agreement. And with some of the new rules coming out of the NAR settlement, we will see a lot more buyer's agency agreements out there. Now, let's take a minute and switch gears and let's think about the seller's agent or the listing agent, the one who represents the seller in the transaction. Their role is completely different from that of a buyer's agent. They are here to facilitate the best transaction for a seller, and that is looking out for the seller's best interest in the contract as well. So you've got the buyer's agent that we've already talked about that is looking out for the buyers and trying to write a contract that's best for the buyers. You also have a seller's agent who's overseeing and helping the sellers really establish and have a agreement to purchase their property that is best for the seller. So as you can see, it takes some give and take and negotiation skills to have that win-win where both parties feel like they're going to move forward. Now, the seller's agent really does a different job than that of a buyer's agent. They are that strategic counsel for that seller. They're the ones who really work to bring the property to market, to put it in its best light, to make sure that the photos are great and all the documentation is there. And it's really kind of put there on a little bit of a platter for a buyer to come and tour and hopefully find some comfort and decide to move forward in putting that property under contract. A seller's agent has to leverage different tools, whether it's the multiple listing service or other marketing avenues, depending on what the seller's needs are, as well as employing some pretty incredible skills to create a great comparative market analysis to really try and analyze the comps and find the comparables that will establish a good value for that property. They are also on the side of the seller going to be skillfully negotiating against that buyer's agents and against those buyers to find the seller the best deal. And they are also going to be overseeing the intricacies of the closing process to make sure that everything is done correctly so that the sellers can move forward to closing. In Texas, we are governed by the Texas Real Estate Licensure Act, or TRELA, which can be found in the Texas Occupations Code 1101 if you're geeky like I am on knowing all those numbers. And this is really what outlines what we can do and establishes all the rules to which we have to play from. It also helps govern whether we are working with someone as our client or they are a customer. So really understanding the roles of a buyer's agent or a seller's agent is really critical to navigate the Texas real estate landscape. My colleagues and I serve as vital roles in the process to help our clients attain their dreams, really. And it is guarded by legislation, which really provides the scaffolding work that has been erected in Texas law to give us some rules to play by to make sure that the buyers are represented as well as the sellers. You can dig deeper into this subject by clicking on my blog link below in the comment section and really get in and read a little bit more detail about the differences between buyer's agency and seller's agency. Or you're welcome to search and find other topics that are of interest to you. If you happen to be ready to find a home or to sell a home, reach out to me and I'll see if I can help you. If not, I'm happy to try and find you the best real estate professional equipped to offer you the tailored guidance that you deserve, as well as that unwavering support in your neck of the woods. Thanks.